Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Brett Davis. Joining me today is the Center Square's Eastern Washington reporter, Tim Schumann. You recently authored a piece headlined, Spokane City Council Brings Police Chief Under Ombudsman Authority. So on Monday, the Spokane City Council voted to broaden the authority to investigate the city's chief in the aftermath of complaints that Chief Craig Meidel engaged in inappropriate communications with local business owners and Mayor Nadine Woodward's refusal to investigate the claims. So I understand the meeting lasted nearly 4 hours, and the police chief made a video against this ordinance. Can you tell us what happened? What went on there?
There was a lot of action in this city council meeting, but a solid hour of it was dedicated to this ordinance, essentially removing a line from the Spokane Municipal Code that was put there nearly a decade ago by a different city council and a different administration, essentially saying that the only person who had the authority to investigate the chief of police was the mayor, because the chief doesn't fall under the purview of any union. The chief is his own department head and part of the mayor's cabinet. And the logic was, well, that means that they need a close working relationship and the chief needs to be able to act with autonomy.
So I guess some of the problem is some people think the chief and the mayor are too closely aligned politically?
A bit, yes. And even during the council meeting, one of the members, council member Zappone, brought up the fact that after the mayor came out against this ordinance, that the police chief, Craig Meidel, donated to the mayor's reelection campaign 10 days later, which is not a great look.
Right. Yeah, that just looks bad. I see the council voted 6-1, so this was not quite unanimous. What was the one council member who voted against it? What was his take?
Councilmember Jonathan Bingle voted against it, and historically, Councilmember Bingle and Councilmember Cathcart have been more aligned with the administration, but it was much more of a begrudging vote against. Councilmember Bingle merely had some concerns that the wording of the law with this removal of this sentence became too murky, and it could lead to lack of clarity on authority as to whose job it was to investigate the chief of police. He begrudgingly voted no, is my read on it. Is very much closer to a unanimous vote than it looked like.
I see. So is there any indication this will have any impact on rank and file police officers, or do you think this is going to be confined to, most of the city council and the police chief? I don't know if this is going to cause any problems in terms of law enforcement. The
city council and the police chief, they've had a fairly functional working relationship. The police chief still, like the week prior, presented to the city council, noting that his staffing levels were down 20% from what he'd like to be able to put boots on the street. But in terms of the rank and file, that's an interesting question, because the Spokane Police Guild is also currently in contract negotiations for a new labor agreement with the city. They just announced Wednesday that they had reached a tentative working agreement, but that working agreement still has to be ratified by the Guild, and it has to be put to a vote. All of this stuff with the police chief in this investigation is happening in between this announcement of a working agreement and the working agreement actually being ratified.
I see. So do you think with this agreement, do you think there's a greater chance now that the police chief will be investigated, or?
I think that it seems like the ombudsman will pursue an investigation. The video you mentioned earlier that Chief Meidel released was essentially saying, I have already been investigated. I have already complied with this investigation. No further investigation is needed. And Ombudsman's office and members of the city council have said that the initial investigation, which concluded in December of 2022, raised more questions than it answered.
So there was an actual investigation,
there was an actual investigation. The degree to which the office of the police chief complied with that investigation varies depending on who you talk to. But there is no dispute that an investigation happens. He was investigated, and he was essentially, the ombudsman didn't have the authority to discipline him, so there were results. We'll just say that.
Well, this sounds like it could be an interesting ongoing story. We look forward to your continued coverage. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at thecentersquare.com. For Timothy Schumann, this is Brett Davis. Please subscribe, and thanks for listening.